Hello, my name is Sierra, and I just want to take this time to tell you a little bit of my story, specifically how I decided that Jesus is the one true God and why I decided to follow him with my life. And so, really, my story begins at childhood. When I was born, into a home with an alcoholic father, a drug addict. When I was around 6 months old, my mom and my father divorced. And at the time, of course, I was an infant, had no idea, but that really left just a part of my life longing for a father and desiring to have, a father and someone father me in my life. Growing up, my mom took us to church regularly. We were there every Sunday. And I remember being a 6-year-old little girl and hearing the teacher at my church share to the children how Jesus is like a good father. And there was something about, as a 6-year-old, hearing that Jesus was a father, seeing an absence of my own father in my life, that led me to decide that I want to pursue this Jesus guy and see what he's about and see what he's doing and maybe what following him would mean for my life. And so at the age of 6, during that time at church, I prayed a prayer, and in that prayer, I simply just told Jesus I wanted to follow him, that I wanted to give my life to see what he was all about and what the teaching and what following him meant. And so, and I believe I really meant that as a 6-year-old. I didn't fully know what that meant, but I did mean what I said at the time. And so fast forward, I am 15 years old, and through following Jesus, I had started on that journey sharing him with other people, and that led me to 15 years old being in the nation of India. And while I was in the nation of India, I met a girl who was of a different religious background. She worshipped, she was a follower within Hinduism, so she worshipped over 300 million different gods. And as I began to share with her my story of I found peace in following Jesus as the one true God, and I found peace in recognizing that he is a father, a really good father. She began weeping. This girl, her name was Regima, and as she was weeping, something happened, and in that moment she said, I also want to follow Jesus. And I told her, following Jesus means you are saying no to all other gods. Is that what you want to do? And she said, absolutely, that's what I want to do. And so I prayed with Regima. She that day decided to follow Jesus. And she told me that her own father was an alcoholic, a drug addict, but she asked me to pray for her dad. So in that moment, I took time to pray with Regima, and there was something that stirred inside of me that I knew God, I knew Jesus was going to do something in her father's life, that there was going to be just the desire for alcohol to be removed. There was just this hope inside of my heart that Regima's father's life was going to be changed through this little girl. And I left that moment, and I realized that all throughout my childhood up till 15 years old, I had lost that same hope for my own father. And I had recognized Jesus as a good father, but I didn't realize and I didn't see that that same Jesus, that's this God, could potentially have the same impact on my own father's life as he had on my life, as he had on Regima in India, and as I knew he was going to have on Regima's father. And so I began just talking with Jesus through prayer, is what I call it, and we just began praying for my father, and I began really lifting him up and saying, Jesus, if you are real, I need you to move in my father's life. I need something to happen that leads to him knowing that you are a way of living, that you are the only way to live and following you. I need breakthrough in his life in the area of drugs and alcohol, for those things to be dissatisfying to him. So at 15 years old, really began praying. I returned home from India and found out that my 19-year-old sister had been praying very similar prayers that same summer as she was preparing to get married, desiring for my father to attend her wedding, to walk her down the aisle. She had begun praying that Jesus would lead my father to himself, and that he would send people across my father's path and across my father's life to point out that he is the one true God. And so my sister and I continued praying. In about October of that year, my 15-year-old year, we reached out to my father, and my sister said, Dad, I want you to come to my wedding, but you can't come messed up on drugs. You have to come clean and sober. but I want you to come because you're loved and you're forgiven. And my father shared with us over that phone call how he had just spent some time in jail and how he had grown up in a church without really encountering Jesus. He had heard about Jesus, but never had made the decision to truly follow him as God. And as he was in jail that year, the same time I was in India, the same time my sister began praying, as he was in jail, he said, God, if you are real, I need you to do something. Send someone to bring me help because I don't know how to change and fix my life. And little did my sister and I know, and my mom and my stepdad at the time as well know, that we would get to be the answer to what he was praying. And so my sister and her future husband drove down about an hour and a half from our home, picked up my father and drove him back. And my mom and my stepdad were also praying for him and felt that Jesus had told them through just feeling and a sensing in their heart that they were supposed to allow my father to stay in the camper, the RV in our backyard. And many people told us this was crazy. They said that this would totally destroy our family. This was a terrible idea. But they believed that Jesus was speaking to them as God. And so my sister brought my father to our home. My parents, my mom and my stepdad sat outside with him and just shared, look, we want you to be a part of our family. We want you to be clean and sober. We want you to get your life back on track. But you cannot bring drugs in our home. This kind of laid out some ground rules. And he said, I'm ready. And so he spent, in a little backstory, my father had gotten addicted to drugs when he was 11 years old. He was at a party with his brother and he was stabbed in the arm with some drugs. I don't know the specific drug, but from that time he had done crystal meth, crack cocaine, heroin, everything you name it, he had done it. And up from 11 up until this point of his life, he was around 40, 45, he had been in some way addicted to some type of drug. Had tried to get clean and every time would fail at any withdrawal process. And so it seemed like a very impossible task that was in front of him. But he said, okay, I'm ready because I know that this is God. God is doing this. Because I was praying, my girls were praying, and now you guys opened up your home. There has to be God. And so he went into the camper. He slept for about 24 hours. And when my father left the RV, then after that 24-hour period, he came out completely clean of all drugs with no withdrawals, no relapses. From that moment on, has been completely clean of drugs and has never gone back. And I share that with you because I just believe my life first in encountering Jesus as God, but also seeing that same Jesus as God show up in my father's life. I know that nothing is too big for him. No failure, no addiction, no choice of our own can really separate us from the goodness and the love of God. And I just want to encourage you today that whatever your life looks like, whatever maybe you currently situation or circumstance you're in, or a family member, that I believe that in trusting the one true God, Jesus, that there is a potential for breakthrough and power. There is a potential for him to show up and bring freedom from any kind of addiction, any kind of hopeless situation. As a 15-year-old girl, to see God answer my prayers and restore hope in my heart totally changed my life. That now, anytime I look back on that moment and I maybe begin to question or wonder, God, why do I not see you moving? Are you even real? I can't deny what he did in my life. And so thank you so much for listening, and I hope this has an impact on your life.